by Buckner's Fatherhood Effect program, where fathers connect with their children. Just a few facts for you. Positive father involvement contributes to child health and well-being. Their children are less likely to be mistreated, and their children have greater success in school. Some pretty positive facts just because dad is around. Fatherhood Effect program believes in the importance of fathers in the lives of their children. It is our hope to effectively support and engage dads through a blend of the 24/7 dad curriculum and a series of 6 workshops paired with a father-child events throughout the year. Topics of discussion include family history with dads, what it means to be a man, how to show and handle your feelings, co-parenting, children and the relationship with their fathers, along with many others. We believe that fathers want to be the best dads that they can be. I am Jada Camp. I'm the Fatherhood Support Coordinator, and I'm joined by my supervisor, Cindy Moore, and my program director, Jeff Ross, in welcoming you to this dynamic topic of fathers and their families. I would like to introduce to you our speaker this afternoon, Mr. J. Michael Hall. J. Michael Hall is the father of 2 sons. One is a high school teacher and the other a marketing director. And he's the husband of a beautiful middle school reading teacher. Now, she would be my favorite teacher. Mr. Hall has been a special ed teacher, a teacher of the gifted and talented, and an intermediate and middle school principal. As an educator, speaker, and founder of Strong Fathers, Strong Families, he has presented to more than 225,000 fathers and parents at local schools, Head Starts, and regional and national conferences. J. Michael has worked with over 300 schools in Texas and in over 45 states with public schools and Head Start. Recently, he has presented virtually 3 national conferences, 2 state conferences, several webinars, and live feeds. He is also working weekly with fathers in Singapore using online tools. Mike is also the current co-host of the International Partnerships, a collaborative podcast in partnership with Lindsay Shaw and the National Center for Parents as Teachers. He has written 5 different fatherhood curriculum and is also a contributing author to the book on fathering entitled Why Fathers Count. He is considered one of the country's foremost experts on working with fathers in schools and Head Starts. For his pioneering work in education, he was honored as a 2012 White House Champion of Change for his work in the fatherhood field around the nation. And ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Mr. J. Michael Hall. Unmute.
Oh yeah, there we go. It's allowing me to do it. Got all kind of clicks going on, got all kind of different things going on here. We can go to a couple other screens. We're going to be clicking around a little bit. Cindy and Jada are going to be letting people in, chat with them, do the things that you need to do. Some of you have no idea what this background is behind me, but it was one of my favorite shows when I was a kid growing up. So I can't help but think of the song that goes with that show. And I've done, well, I told them earlier, this is my 5th Zoom meeting for the day. And so I know some of you are Zoom fatigued, and I appreciate you joining us. I appreciate you being with us today. And so a couple of things we want to kind of cover as we go. Let me step to the side here. If your real name is not on your account, you can go up to the 3 dots, click on the 3 dots in your square, and type rename. If you're on a cell phone, that's a little bit more difficult, and we've got an answer for you here in a minute. But what we want you to do, because we're going to kind of keep a record of who's showing up every week, who's here in case your boss asks, whoever's asking, but give you credit. Make sure you get credit for doing all the hard work of hanging out with us today. Make sure you change your name to your real name, no aliases, but some of you have a spouse's computer or a kid's computer, or your name's not showing up. Like mine shows up as Strong Fathers because of my account. I changed mine to J. Michael Hall. And so after you change your real name, or to your real name, or your complete name, unless your last name is iPhone, type in your complete name, and then in chat, once you've typed in your name, type in here. right? We're just going to take roll. But the other piece of that is if it's too hard for you to change your name, I'll say you're on a phone or something, or it won't let you because of the type of account you have, type your name next to that in chat, first and last name and the word here. And so that's kind of how we're going to take roll. And so we've got 37 folks here. We expect a few more. They're going to be coming in. Some of them have difficulties. Y'all have all been there where it's like, I was supposed to be there at this time, and now something's not working or the internet's out or whatever. And so want you to be able to do that. Also, if you have any questions, if you have anything that you need, you can hit up on chat. I'm going to be watching a little bit while I'm talking to you, but also Jada and Cindy are going to be watching. And so if there's any questions or challenges you have, we want to know about that. And then we'll try to address that, particularly technology. Just like a minute ago, I could have been talking and blabbering on and not know I was muted. So I'm always trying to check those things, do those things as well. So feel free to use the chat. It's kind of like passing notes like we used to in elementary, but a little different. Also, I hate to tell you this because you guys will be talking behind my back. You can click on everyone at the bottom of chat, and it will show you all the people that have allowed themselves to be seen on there, and you can click on that and just send a message to them. So make sure if you do that, that you send a nice message in case you accidentally click everyone, right? And then everybody goes, he's like, what's the deal? Why is he doesn't have much hair, whatever you want to say. So, you know, we want you to be able to use that. We want you to be able to enjoy this. We're going to try to use all the tricks and tips that we can to make this as good of opportunity. This was going to be a live presentation. It was going to be actually a little shorter than this. So we're going to steal a little bit more of your time, but we hope in this format of 3 weeks, you know, just an hour and a half, hour and 15 minutes in the afternoon, that we're giving you good content in a way that you can digest it. And between now and next week, if you want more, we've got more. We can provide some reading. We can provide some links. We can have some online discussion, different things. And I know you've got other things to do. I'm not having this, you know, kumbaya community moment, but we want you to know that we do want to take advantage of this kind of setup to make it the best we can. A lot of you have gone to a half day or a full day training. Hopefully this will provide a lot of good things for you, but it's kind of done. You know, and it's like, but I had questions, or I had to digest that material before I thought about what questions I want to ask. So we're going to kind of open that up next week of when you said this, or what do I do about this, or I know somebody that. That's usually what comes back to us at that time. And so let me tell you a little bit about myself. I am the president and founder of Strong Fathers, Strong Families. And we just finished our 17th school year. So, you know, our life changed like everybody else did when we were in the middle of a fairly busy spring doing programs in schools and in Head Start. And so let you know kind of what we do, what I do, how we work. We have worked with over 220,000 dads in public schools and Head Starts. The major part of our work is in educational environments like schools and Head Starts. We have a 10-week curriculum for guys on probation for child support, for guys that have a CPS case. The same course has been used in reentry, both inside, outside, and in the middle. It's been used in halfway houses and rehab, anybody that's a father. And so those 5 curriculum we talk about, I've written one for high school. I've written one for 0 to 3, 3 to 5, elementary. We're trying to reach dads wherever the dads may be. It's not elementary dads, it's dads of elementary kids. It's not high school dads, it's dads of high school kids. We work with teen dads as well, but mainly through our strength training program. So we've been all over the country. We've been in 45 states. Been, like Jada said earlier, we're working with dads in Singapore. That was supposed to be a visit and ended up, of course, they got canceled first. They were ahead of the curve on this stuff as it was. And so we didn't get to go in March, but then we've been doing work online with 200 to 300 dads at a time. It's really been kind of a cool experience. And also to find out what we kind of already know from some of the other travels, that all dads everywhere, even though there's different cultural challenges, have the same heart, have the same challenges, have the same fears even. So it's been a really fulfilling time for me. It's been neat. I'm on at 8 in the morning. They're there at 9 at night. So if you want to know how far around the world it is, a long way. As far as my credentials go, my most important credentials are these guys right here. This is my lovely wife, who is now not a middle school reading teacher. I need to change my bio. She's a high school reading teacher, and she's excited about doing some intervention with kids as they're trying to get out of high school and trying to build those skills. And she spent 17 years in elementary, 10 years in middle school. I finally got her to high school. I'm very excited about it. Our son here that's getting married is Jacob. He's 28. He is a high school teacher in Dallas. Our daughter-in-law, his wife, is Lauren. She's a licensed professional counselor in Dallas. This was April a year ago that they've been married. And then that tall dude, if he didn't act like me and have a red beard, they might not know he's mine. But my 6'1" son is Josh. He was a marketing coordinator at the Oklahoma Zoo. And so if you're looking for a marketing coordinator, I think you may be looking right now. But he's off dad's payroll, so you can contact him if you want to do that. But I say those are my credentials. That's why I do the work that I do. That's what informs the work that I do. And so married 31 years, father for 28, been doing fatherhood work for about 20. Now, my other story is prior to that, just like she said in the bio, I am a recovering middle school principal. I used to have red hair. I used to have more hair, actually, right? But I was a middle school principal, intermediate principal, and trying to do that and be a dad at the same time was quite a challenge for me. Now, some of you are looking at this going, I think I know that guy. I think he was at my school. You may be thinking of this guy. I'm not the guy off of HBO Vice Principals, but it's pretty uncanny how close that picture is. Now, the other thing uncanny is about 90% of vice principals and principals look exactly like me and this dude. The other thing is this is not me. It's very close, but it's not me. So when I do science nights, I have to tell him he's taller, thinner, richer. I am not Adam Savage, but I do get yelled at the airports when I was in airports. And so just so you're wondering where you've seen me, you may not have ever seen me. I may just look like somebody else, you know. So here's what we're going to do. We've got several questions we're going to go through. And I actually need to change my name again. Let me do that real quick. So I'm going to change my name to answer. Where is it? There we go. Got to spell it. That'll be the first thing that comes up on chat. So what we're going to do in chat is when I ask these questions, we're just going to ask for one-word answers. You can send it out to everybody. That's fine. If you have the everyone button and it's easier to click, let's make it easy. But if you go to click, if you don't want everybody to get your answer and you want it just to come to me, it's going to come there. And so let me ask you our first question as we get started. The first thing is, have any of you been to a Strong Fathers workshop? I've worked in the Beaumont area with different agencies and stuff. Put in the chat if you've ever been to a Strong Fathers workshop, because I work with Head Start, I work with schools, I work with social service, I work with CPS. So that may be the first question. The second question is, for those of you that are parents, and for those of you that hope to be parents someday, what kind of adult do you want your child to become? Just what is one trait that you want your kids to have? What kind of adult do you want your child to become? Well-rounded, compassionate, independent, responsible, successful, kind, self-aware, productive, and caring, filled with integrity, responsible if I had a kid, responsible, loving, tenacious, responsible. Somebody's just bragging about, I don't have a kid. Ha ha. I'm not stuck at home with a child. Ha ha. That's what I heard. Loving, responsible, spiritual. And you can keep putting those answers in. The thing is, that's the answer we get all the time. I ask this question all over the country of parents, of professionals. I've asked this question in other countries. The interesting thing is, even if the language is different, the answers are the same. When we ask parents, when we ask anybody that is a parent or wants to be a parent, these are the answers we get. And if you notice, out of all the things that are coming here, none of these are action words. These are all traits we want our kids to possess. You know, nobody says, I want my kid to go to this college and then move to this town and then do this thing and then do this thing. This is the traits that we want our kids to possess. right? A lot of you guys that have kids, you know that when we talk about our kids, do we talk about what they do, or do they talk about how they are? You can put that in chat if you want. You don't have to. When you talk about your kids to somebody else, when somebody says, how are your kids? Do you talk about what they're doing when they were doing stuff? Or do you talk about how they are? You know, do you say they're in tennis, they're in band, they're in choir, they're working, they're in college? Or do you say, you know, they're really developing a heart for others? Most of the time we talk about what our kids do. And I always ask parents, how many of you have busy kids? Everybody raises their hands because everybody has busy kids. Why do we want our kids to be busy? The answer I normally get is because we don't want our kids to be in trouble. We don't want our kids to be in trouble. We don't want our kids to do drugs. If you keep your kids busy, they won't do drugs. You don't want your kids to be busy. I mean, you don't want your kids to be in trouble. You don't want your kids to use drugs. So you keep your kids busy so they won't be in trouble or use drugs. And then all the parents are taking drugs to keep up with their busy children, right? Starbucks is in business for a reason. Red Bull sells for a reason. We talk about the kids using energy drinks. I bet more parents are using some sort of energy drink. Coffee is my drug of choice. So we're doing that to keep up with our busy kids. And we do want our kids busy to stay out of trouble. But one of the reasons I had my kids busy was to keep them out of trouble. But the other part was I wanted them to develop these things that they're going to develop, right? This is one of the ways they get that. The thing is, we ask, so how do kids learn to be responsible, spiritual, dreaming, let me see some of these answers. A risk taker, integrity, they're self-aware, they're loving, they're kind, they're compassionate, they're independent. Let me see who put that. That was from Kate. Usually it's a dude. Usually the dad is like, I want him to be independent, like at 12. So how do kids get that? Where do kids get these traits? From whom do they get these traits? This is where you can type in an answer. Parents, because for me, because I'm amazing. All right. And humble. Modeling, parents, and they get it from us through modeling. So you kind of jumped ahead of me there. Yeah. So we don't sit our kids down and say, hey, I want you to be honest. So we're going to have a pre-test, 3 modules on honesty and a post-test. And if you do well, you'll be an honest adult. No, they get it from us. You know, how many of us have told our kids, don't tell a lie, always tell the truth, don't you lie to me. And then when they when they pick up our cell phone when it rings and answer it, we're like, tell them I'm not here, right? And so we wonder why kids do the things they do. All the moms say, well, because they act like their daddy. All the dads think they act like their mama, but we're too scared to say it. But you know, those are the things that we know kids do. Like, I believe that God gives kids the ability to lie between the ages of 0 and 3 so that we don't kill them. Like, if you've ever looked into the eyes of a 2-year-old and they told you a gorilla came into the room and threw all these blocks around and they look you in the eye, you're like telling your spouse, you're like, maybe we should call 911. Maybe there really is a gorilla, right? Because they look so sincere. They're so good at it. They're even better than what we taught them. So I really believe that's a God-given survival gift that we give, that he gives kids. But who do they start sounding like? About 3. You know, at the age of 3, they start, you know, I always tell them, don't try that trick on me. I taught you that trick, right? And so we know that they get that from modeling. They get that from parenting. And one of the challenges we have as parents is if we had good things from our parents that we want to pass along, it's really not that hard. Like, my best days of parenting were not that hard because I had parents that showed me a lot of those things. Some of my worst days of parenting were when I carried on what my parents did that I didn't want to carry on, but I still did, because at the point of stress, we return to what we know. So as much as we said, we're not going to yell at our kids this way, we're not going to do these things like my parents did, I'm not going to have these habits, I'm not going to say these things, all those things, we return to it because that's what we know. We have to make a conscious, intentional decision not to parent in certain ways if we were raised that way. And a lot of you came from some challenging environments, and you know the challenge of just not returning to those ways. And you're committed, and you said, I would never do that. And yet in the heat of the moment, you find out it's like, man, that's the first thing I want to go to. And I swore I would never do that. So we see how strong role models are how strong our parents are as role models, both positively and negatively. So let's look at our next question. Okay, let me move some things around here. Actually, I'm going to take that down. So our next question is, if we have these role models that have an impact, who are these role models? So this is another chance for you to get to answer the question. So what are the strengths of strong moms? Dads and moms need to answer this. What are the strengths of strong moms? One word answers, please. Consistency, nurturing, caring, patience, nurturing. You guys are spelling nurturing right. A lot of times it's spelled neutering, which tells me that somebody's got a teenager. Nurturing, prayerful, consistency. Maybe some of you are just cheating now. I'm not really sure. But that's pretty standard answers, guys. Multitasking, loving, patient, transparency, fun, understanding, patient, perseverance. And every time you see patient, you look at it, it's like, it's a mom. It's like, I am trying not to kill somebody right now, so I am being patient. Self-driven, forgiving. These kids yelling in the background while I'm on a Zoom meeting, I'm trying to be patient. Compassionate, forgiving, patient. All right, so those are really typical answers, and I think they're typical because they're true. But when we look at these answers, these are what we would call feminine parenting traits. And part of the challenge of me giving you this workshop is I don't get to see your eyebrows go up when I say feminine parenting traits. But what we know is we're kind of getting where we can't talk like that, but there's no reason that we shouldn't be saying those things for several reasons. Number one, all moms are women. Not all women are moms, but every mom is a female. That's how biology works. That's how that thing works. So she's going to come from a female perspective of female biology. And so there will be people that say mothers mother this way because of the patriarchal system or long traditions or, you know, all these things that go on. But as you go around the world, you find that moms are moms, regardless of what culture they're in. They may be hunter-gatherers. They may be corporate people. They may be in a third world. They may be in the first world. They may be somewhere in between. But my travels and travels of other people have informed us that moms act the same way within their cultural context all over the world. And so we have to kind of explain that. So how does that work? Why does that happen? What happens if mom changes her job? What happens if she's not a stay-at-home mom, but she's a go-to-work mom? And everything is based on the relationship that this woman, female, has with her kids. The reason mom does what she does is because of the feminine nature of who she is. That doesn't mean that she's Betty Crocker. That doesn't mean that she's not tough. That doesn't mean that she's not assertive or even aggressive. What it means is the relationship determines her parenting behavior more than the culture does around her. And so some people, again, I can't see your eyebrows go up, but people will say, well, I don't think that's true. Well, let me do a quick test. How many of you know boys and girls are different? Everybody can raise your hand. Maybe I can see you on Zoom on that, right? Yeah, boys and girls are different. How many, I didn't want to do that part of the workshop. It's really awkward. How many of you know men and women are different? And all you women, when you raise your hand, you're like, yes. You're like, I just saw the laundry, not in the basket, but very close to the basket. Yes, we're different. But it's so funny when I do it in a room of 200-300 women because I train teachers and educators. And when I say how many of you know men and women are different, there's always, every time. If we know moms and dads, if we know boys and girls are different and we know men and women are different, then we have to know that moms and dads are different. And so mom does what she does because of not just her feminine nature. And again, I'm not even trying to restrict that, but it is what it is in the fact of it's the biology, but more so it's even the relationship she has with the child because of that biology. And so I'll show you what we know. In the life of a child, moms are the center of the universe. We know that. And that is not something that we somehow culturally put on a kid. Kid just got to the culture and they already know that. All the women in here know that. All the guys know better than to say something different. But what's interesting is in the life of the child, moms are the center of the universe. We know that. That doesn't change anything. Nobody's going to argue with that. The interesting point when you think about this is the child actually starts out in the middle of the center of the universe, right? And so as we look at that, as we look at how that's going, then we have to understand this means something in those relationships. Now, let's look at this for a minute. So mom's the center of the universe. Baby starts out in the middle of the center of the universe. But from the time that child is conceived, from the time that child goes from 1 cell to 2 cells to 2 million cells, that child spends the rest of their life moving away from mom. I think I heard depressing sighs even on Zoom, right? But that's true, because what happens 9 months after the child is conceived? You don't have to type that answer. I hope you know. So let's talk about how these children move away, right? They move away from mom, what they do at birth. Some moms struggle with the child going to the father or the grandparents because it's no longer connected to the mom. Some moms actually go through grief when they stop breastfeeding because they're no longer sustaining the life of the child from their own body. Now, some of you moms, when you got to stop breastfeeding, you threw a party. You're like, look, dude, I've been up every night for all these nights. It's in the refrigerator. You can get up and warm it up and give it to the baby. Woohoo! No grief there. But a lot of moms go through grief. A lot of moms feel it because it's changing the nature of the relationship even very early in the relationship. We were talking earlier about Head Start in kindergarten. What about when those babies go to kindergarten for the first time? You know, particularly the older one. So my wife was an elementary teacher for 17 years. In the school where she taught, where my kids went to school, even where I did programs, they had what they called the Tears and Cheers room. First day of school, and there's coffee, orange juice, and there's Kleenexes everywhere. There's a dad or two in there, but it's just because we were looking for food, and there just wasn't any. And there are moms in there, and some of those moms are a puddle. Like, my baby, some other woman has my baby, right? They're like, what am I going to do? You can always tell that mom bringing their first child to kindergarten. They are a mess. Now, you can also tell the mom bringing their second kid to kindergarten because they're like, no, if you take the big one, then I've got to talk to the little one. I've never actually talked to the little one. I've always used my interpreter. If you take this one, who's going to play with the little one? All right. And then you can always tell the mom bringing her last kid to kindergarten, I don't need any coffee because I'm going to Starbucks by myself for the first time in 17 years. No matter where Starbucks may be in your community. And they're the first one to ask about after school care, right? Like, can I pick them up at 5:59? What do you mean registration period, right? So we know that moms feel that tug when somebody else begins to care for their child. And then, and next week we'll talk about kind of some of those separation issues that go with mom and dad. So we know what happens in kindergarten. What about when that child, I used to be a middle school principal. What about when that child goes to middle school, right? What do you start seeing? What do you start feeling? There's a lot of fear. I had moms that came in and they were worried about those 6th graders. They're going to have a bad attitude and they're around these big, hairy 8th graders. And I don't want my daughter around those big, hairy boys, or I don't want my boy around those big grown girls, you know, all the concerns they had because it was one more step of release, right? And so we know that children spend the rest of their life moving away from their kids, or their kids moving away from mom. Some of the moms want to move away from the kids, but the kids move away from mom. And like I said, all of those are kind of sad points for moms, you know? And so in a healthy relationship, mom cannot and should not go with the child. But the neat part is the kid can always come back. Like if she stays in her role as the center of the universe, the kid can always come back to that. Right. And that's what we want to know. That's what we want to see. And that's what makes it okay. My sons are 24 and 28. They are adult men with jobs. They pay their own rent. They pay their own insurance. They do all those things. But I know when they're coming home, even if I've not been told when they're coming home, because when I open the refrigerator and it's full of food, I'm like, yes, the boys are coming home and I get to eat this weekend. Right. You can tell I haven't missed too many meals, but I'm telling you, the feed is on when the kids are coming home. Why? Because mom wants them to come home. They're coming home to be cared for. Sometimes I think they're coming home to mow. They somehow don't think that. But they come home to see their mom. They come home to see their dad, but they're coming home because they can always come back to mom. So when you're 2 and you're looking, you know, you want to go out there and see what's going on, but where's mom? I want to go see what's going on, but where's mom? That looks interesting, but where's mom? And then the car backfires, the dog barks, and we run back to mom. And so we always want to go out into the world, but we see that we've got to come back, right? And so that makes for a healthy relationship, that mom's not out there being a helicopter parent. Mom's not out there being what we would call a lawnmower parent, where she's trying to take down all the obstacles where the child has no challenges. But if she keeps and maintains her role as the center of the universe, the kids always know where to go back to, and they do. And so that's kind of the relationship set up from the fact that she gave birth, that she sustained her babies from her body, that she is there in that center, and kids can go back to her, right? And so that's how moms do all the moms things that they do, not just because she was taught that way, because that's the nature of the relationship. So let's do this real quick. In the chat, what are the strengths of strong fathers? Consistent, practical, present, being present, honest integrity. I know you can read these, by the way. I'm doing it for the video. Leader, understanding, logical, protector, consistent, consistency, provider, loving, listener, provider, consistency, role model. Now, these are pretty standard answers too. What was interesting 20 years ago when we started doing this, about the only answer anybody could come up with was provider. Like groups of very educated people, when we asked this question, would put provider, and unless they had a really strong relationship with their dad, they're like, I don't, and even if they had a strong relationship, they hadn't been using that vocabulary. And the one, role model, consistency, you guys put present, which is always interesting to me, is like, mom is patient and loving and nurturing. Dad's just there. If we can just get him to be there, we feel like we've done something. But present in all its forms is really good, but it's always interesting that that's the same. So did anybody say dads were patient? I don't see anybody saying dads were patient. Dads are patient. They're not patient like mom, may not be as patient as mom, but moms are patient. But that's the point, is if mom is honest and dad is honest, then they're not honest the same way. If mom's consistent and dad's consistent, they're not consistent the same way, right? And so we know that, and there's several reasons for that. And so let's discuss that for a minute. So the strengths of dads that you talked about, those are masculine parenting traits. They're not macho, they're not toxic, they're what men do, but there's a reason we act like the way we do. There's a reason we parent the way we do. And so mom's the center of the universe in the life of a child. The kids can go back to mom. But dads can only enter the life of a child from the outside. There's no other way to do that. Men don't give birth. Men don't breastfeed. We're happy about both of those. But I was at the birth of both my children, one in a delivery room, one in a birthing suite, but I was outside their mom in the big bad real world, waiting for them to enter that, out of the safety of that womb, the love of their mother, into the cold, cruel, hard world, right? And I was the first one to greet them besides the doctor there. And so that's our role every time. That's the only way we can enter the life of the child, from the outside. And that means something in how we relate to our kids. Kids know that they are from mom and of us as dads, right? Boys and girls know that about their relationship. And so dads entering the life of the child from the outside really informs the way that we parent. So moms have this, because they're the center of the universe, they have this gravitational pull. And what I mean is the kid says, hey, I'm going to go ride my tricycle on the patio. Mom goes, well, or ride my tricycle. Mom goes, on the patio, wear your helmet, wear your bubble wrap, right? And then dad says, come on, we'll go ride your tricycle. Your mom's here, so wear your helmet. Don't worry about your bubble wrap. We're not going to go on the patio. We're going to go on the driveway, but I'll be there to watch you. And so dad is working against that gravitational pull. He's to work with it because it can be very handy in the raising of a child, but also he's going to work against mom's aversion to risk. So the baby's walking or running across the sidewalk, and or you hold the baby up. Oh my gosh, just hold the baby up. Mom's like, right? And the child gets to where they know it's like, no, mom went, every time she does that, I fall, because she says it right before I fall. So mom has this aversion to risk, thank goodness. Dad's job is to work within that. And dad was there at the conception, hopefully there at the birth. And yet, as much as this couple for 9 months said, we're having a baby, we're pregnant, the day that child is born, all of a sudden things begin to change, right? Because she becomes the protector of that child, which I believe it's physical, it's chemical, it's emotional, and I believe it's spiritual. Because she becomes the protector of that child, she will even protect that child against a trusted partner. So we as dads have to fight against that, again, to regain her trust. And that's a very important role, particularly in those first days and months of the child. We're all gaining competency, but dads have to gain trust, from the mom that he's going to take care of this kid. And we are typically going against that trust almost as soon as we pick up the baby and do all the things that we do, right? And so let's talk about what that looks like. So, the dad says, come on, ride your tricycle. Wear your helmet because mom's here. Okay, now we're going to ride a bike. You can have some training wheels, right? So we've got training wheels. Okay, well, now we're going to take the training wheels off. And I'm going to let you ride to your friends or down to the park by yourself or whatever. And some of you just cringe that I even said that. But that's what we used to do, and that's what a lot of kids do now. And then one of these days, believe it or not, if you haven't gotten there yet, your kid's going to drive off to school, drive off to high school. I still remember the first day for both my kids to drive themselves to school. Tears of joy and tears of sadness all at the same time. Those of you that have younger children cannot imagine what it would be like to let your child drive. It's so dangerous, and I don't think I could do it. Listen, between the ages of 10 and 15, you carry their little heinies to so many places that by the time they turn 16, you're like, look, I know it's dangerous, but you're going to drive yourself. And by the way, take your little brother because I'm tired of dragging his butt too, right? And I still remember also the first day they drove off to college on their own. There were days that we moved them in their freshman year, but there was those days when they came home or that sophomore year where they just left my house. Tears of joy, tears of sadness as well. And so dad's job is to always be there and kind of help with getting them there, navigating to that next level, and also limiting how that level may go. There was a time when my wife said, I think he's a good driver. He can drive there. And I said, no, he can't. I've driven there at that time of day or night. I don't think he's ready for that. And so I'm not just pulling out to get them to take more risk. Sometimes as a dad, I'm also setting parameters. And we always know about dads setting parameters for daughters, but dads do that for sons as well. It's like, he's not quite ready for that, or he is ready for that. So let's see what that looks like. So you've got this progression where dad says, come on out, let me help you. Come on out, let me guide you. If you fall on your bike, you're going to run home to mama. If you fall on your tricycle, you're going to run home to mom. If you crash the car, you're going to tell mama first. You're not going to tell dad. And then when this child's ready to go out into the real world, dad's still there. Now I want to show you this. So I'm 53 years old. 8 years ago, my dad passed away. And I had already dealt with this because of my work, but I'd already dealt with this because of my dad's situation. So when I was 18, my dad was an idiot, dumbest guy on the planet. And then went to college, went to South America for a summer, fell in love with a girl that I didn't understand and probably still don't. And all of a sudden, about 21, all the things my dad said started to make sense. I thought, man, he's smarter than I thought. So at 21, my dad's 46, my granddad passes away. And my dad had a super tender heart. We're sitting on the edge of the bed 3 days after my granddad passes away, and my dad says, I don't know who I'm going to go to for advice. I thought you were an idiot. It took me 3 years to figure out how smart you were, and now you're telling me you don't know anything. And what he meant was, even though he'd had 2 or 3 businesses, he'd had several mortgages, he raised 3 kids, they were going to church, going to college, staying out of jail, he had somebody between him and the rest of the real world. And I was telling that story way before my dad passed. And when my dad passed, I realized that too, that now that he's gone, I had mentors, I've got friends, but I don't have anybody between me and the rest of the real world. What my adult sons at 24 and 28 know is that I'm still here. What they don't know is what it would be like if I wasn't here between them. Like when I tell them, be careful, life is like this, they're like, dad's an idiot. But what you begin to realize is, wait, I always had my dad there, if I had my dad there, to make those decisions, to help me out, to at least give me sometimes like, here's the bad example I'm not going to follow. My dad was that way for me. I was that way for my kids. I promise you. But we always have somebody between us and the real world. So that's the challenge. What if a kid doesn't have a father or father figure or a group of people in that role between them and the rest of the real world? This rocket goes out of control. And so it's why we talk about the importance of this role in the lives of kids. And so dad is always out there, kind of that next orbit. Like I tell my sons, you guys are really smart 24-year-old, 28-year-old. You're really dumb 50-year-old, right? So we see mom's role, we see dad's role. Why do we have conflict then? If we know mom's this way and dad's this way, first off, some of this is new information to you guys. You've never thought about it this way. And I know that because I get that response all the time. But you think, okay, but why do we have this conflict? If mom wants to do it her way and dad wants to do it his way, and there's a really good role for them to play, why is it so hard for us to play that? Well, let's talk about that. Because part of the problem is we think family works like this. And you've seen the back of the cars, and it used to just be these stick figures. And now it's zombies and Star Wars and whatever. But you see the car, and on the back of the car, you got, like I said, the stick figure family. I always wonder why they don't have like a fat figure family. I think that would be great. But you got dad, you got mom, you got kids. Now, a lot of you are dealing with, boy, that got ahead of me. Let me back that up a little bit because it makes the joke work better. Okay, so we're going to be there anyways. So you got a lot of you are working with blended families. A lot of you are in a blended family. So you got his, hers, and ours. So the stickers there's a few more stickers. Also, you can't work in fatherhood without working I have a bunch of friends that are Mormon, and this is what it looks like in Salt Lake City. I kid you not, you drive in Salt Lake City, there's a bunch of 6-door Suburbans, and there's stickers all the way across the back. By the way, if you think that's offensive, you don't know any Mormons. They know the plan. They know they got all those kids. They know they have all the stickers. But we think mom and dad's over here, all the kids are over there. Why is this a problem? Because that's not how it really works. That's not what real life looks like. Because yes, mom and dad are on the team, but the kids aren't all over there, right? So let's talk about how this really works. And you can let me know here in a minute if you understand what we're talking about or if you even feel this way. So if mom's the center of the universe, and we've already kind of established that, mom in the life of the child, center of the universe, dad enters the life of the child from the outside, where does that put the kid? Kid's always in the middle, no matter what. And so, and you know this is true, but at the very same moment, you cannot be a parent and a partner. Like you can't be a husband and a father in the very same minute because those roles are kind of diametrically opposed to each other. Not that you don't want to be on the same team, not that you can't work together, but there's always a kid between you. So if you're making a decision as a married person, as a married couple, that's fine, but it's so hard to do because you have this other role where this kid's always in the middle. You know this because when we want to get away and work on ourselves as a couple, what do? We get away and we leave the kids at home, or we send the kids away. What do we talk about while the kids are away? Talk about the kids. But now we're talking about ganging up on them as a couple, as opposed to our role as mom and dad. And many times we're talking about our role as mom and dad and working that out so that we're more likely to be a better couple. But you cannot talk about kids without talking about these perspectives. And again, we think we're both right here, so we ought to think the same way. One of the things that dads really appreciate about our work is that we've told them their role is different and their role is valid. Because so many times it's kind of come down through the culture, it's come down through some other things, except research, that all parents ought to think like moms. There's a big push for that. There's this idea that when dads do what dads do, it's toxic. When dads do what dads do, it's not as nurturing. None of that holds up in research, right? Because we have different roles, we have different perspectives. And so when we're talking about this kid, we have kind of what we call constant negotiation. And we're like, well, maybe they could go here, or maybe they could go there. And it's like, well, how does that really work? So let me, I don't even have an elephant when I go to do in-person presentations, but I had to bring mine for the virtual elephant. So if I brought my virtual elephant here and I said, what do you see in this elephant? You'd say it's got a long nose, big ears, smells like peanut butter. If I have an elephant, virtual or not, I'm going to cuff it on the back right leg. I'm going to hold that chain. And you're going to ask me, what do you see in that elephant? I'm going to say it's got no ears, it's got a short tail, and smells nothing like peanut butter back here. So the question is, who's right about the elephant? Well, we're both right about the elephant, right? Two different perspectives. It's how you see it. So if that's the case, who's right about the kids? Now, in a group of women, it's so hard because they see the point, but somebody like, huh? They know they want to say it, and yet at the same time, they see that moms have a perspective, dads have a perspective. Dads will say moms are too soft on kids. Dads will say dads are too harsh. And so we see the kids here where we say, mom says, I think they can go there. And dad says, I don't know that they can. And so maybe they go back that way or that way. And so when we have that gap, mom says all the way up to here, I think they're fine. Dad says, I think they can be all the way out here. Well, now we have a gap. So mom's right and dad's right. Let me get in the picture here. Dad's right, mom's right. But nobody's exactly right, because where that kid needs to be is somewhere in the middle. Now, dad may agree when he talks to mom, you know what, you're right about that point. Mom may agree with dad, you know what, I can see your point, let's go out here. But most of the time, we're both right. And then we kind of negotiate what we call constant negotiation, where we're working to say, what's the best thing for this kid right now? Yes, they can ride the tricycle. Yes, they have to wear a helmet. No, they can ride in the driveway because they're safer or I'm there. So it's constant negotiation. It's constant negotiation with adult children on how we're going to address it, how we're going to speak to them, what we're going to allow or not allow in our own home based on that. Same thing goes for discipline. When we talk about moms being this way, sometimes dads will say moms are too harsh. Sometimes moms will say dads are too soft, right? Sometimes it's daughter, sometimes it's son. The research says with discipline, every household has 2,400 rules. Every household has 2,400 rules. Think about that. That's a lot of rules. And so, and you're saying, I don't think so. Well, who's responsible for most of those rules? Well, we know mom's responsible for most of those rules. This is how the kitchen is set up. This is where the furniture goes. This is what we put on the furniture. This is where the forks go, knives go, spoons go, right? If you were to ask a mom, where do I put the forks? They would say, put them in the top drawer over to the left in that slot that looks like a fork. Why? Because she wants all her kids to know where the forks are. So when you're looking for a fork, you know to go to the top drawer and you look over to the left and it's in that slot. If you were to ask dads, where do the forks go? Dad's like, a drawer. Put them in a drawer. Which one? I don't care. Put them in a drawer. Well, how am I going to find a fork? I don't know. Look in a drawer. So dads can have rules. We just have fewer rules than mom does sometimes. And so, most of us dads are like, I don't know, check the dishwasher. But mom has these rules and dad has these rules. Mom has most of them. And mom's not doing this to just be like some kind of diva, right? To be some kind of control queen, to be any of that. Mom usually sets her rules because she wants her kids to be safe and she wants her kids to be happy, right? She wants this home to be a good place for her kids. She may not be Super Susie Homemaker June Cleaver, but what she wants for her house is I want a place for my kids to be safe. I want it to be clean for them. I want it to be a good place for my kids. So let's do this real quick. If you're a mom, not if you're a dad, not if you're about to be a mom, if you're a mom right now, answer this question in the chat. When my kid grows up, I want them to be blank. Whoa, what am I doing there twice? That was like behind the curtain, wasn't it? Happy, joyful, happy, joyful, kind, independent. Okay, so dads, for all the dads that are on there, finish that same question. When my kids are adults, I want them to be blank. Respectful, who they're supposed to be. Oh, that's from moms. Do we have any dads on here? Dads are trying to figure out where the chat is. Successful. Happy, healthy, successful. Spiritual, whatever they want to be, as long as they're not being that way at my house. That may be all the dads. What we typically do when we see that, and you saw it here, mom's first natural answer is happy. Dads say successful or independent. I want them out of the house. We discipline for that same thing. Mom wants the kids to be happy. She wants them to be successful. She wants them to be independent. But her number one goal, I want my kids to be happy. I want my kids to be safe. So all those rules are in place for those kids to be safe and happy in the home. So dads, you've been in trouble for this. You're sitting on the couch, you're watching the children. By the way, dads don't ever babysit. We parent, we father, we watch the kids, but we don't ever babysit unless she's paying us. And dad's sitting at home watching TV. Kids are jumping off the back of the couch when mom comes in. Mom loses her mind. I told you to watch the kids. I'm watching the kids. No, you didn't. I said, you watch the kids, and they're doing flips off the back of the couch. You're not even watching. Watching, I've been coaching. We've been working on this flip for a week. I moved the table. I shut the curtain so nobody could see them mess up. All right? And she says, no, rule 1967 says, don't jump on the couch. Why? Because I don't want blood on the floor. I don't want my kids to be hurt. I don't want you to ruin my couch. In some order of that way, right? That's what I want. And so dad's getting in trouble, but he's like, I watched him. We're not bleeding on the couch because we cleaned it up, you know. But she's like, no, you bunch of heathens, quit jumping on my couch. 10 minutes later, that family gets in the van. This was pre-COVID. You get in the van, you run down to the mall. The kids jump out of the van, run up and down the aisles, terrorize the old people, jump on the benches, and hide in the clothes rack. Who's the first person to typically get on the kid's case in public? In my life, in the life of most people that I talk to, it was dad. Mom might get onto him, but dad gets on him. Come here, get over here, shut up, quit. I'm never taking you out of the house again. And what does mom do? See, I told you they were heathens. See, we ought to just beat them right now. Let's just leave them in the mall. No, what does mom tell dad? Leave them alone. Those babies are fine. Those old people they should walk in the mornings. If they didn't want them jumping on the benches, they wouldn't have made them out of concrete. See, out in the house, I want my kids to act this way, but out here, those are my babies, and everybody better leave them alone. I can tell you as a middle school principal, I didn't like girl fights, and I didn't like talking to mad mamas. I talked to a mad daddy all day. He didn't even remember what he was mad about because he probably got sent up there by mom who was mad, right? Which I was happy with because mad mamas scare me to death. I call them chainsaw mamas, right? Because they're going to be mama bear, and they're going to take care of their kids. We need that. I needed that. Every kid needs that. But why is dad telling you to behave? Well, dad says out here, outside of this home where I'm raising you, living you, if you don't act right, you can't keep a job, can't stay in school, you won't have friends, you won't stay out of jail, and you got my last name. I ain't having it. And so dad disciplines because it's our job to launch these kids. Right? Mom is there to be the center of the universe, and she's still launching kids. Because mom's such a strong center of the universe, our kids have a base from which to launch. They have a place to come back to. Every bit of that is as strong. Every bit of that is important. We know kids that don't have that don't do well. But dad has a role as well, and dad's job is to help launch these kids, right? And just like we talked about, dad's kind of, in that orbit as well. Right? And our job is to support them. Not financially, by the way. Let me put that on record since this is being videoed. Right? And so we want to do that, and we want you to see that. And so as we look at this, the reason I wanted to bring this up is, let me pull this up here. I'm going to go to questions and answers in just a second. But I wanted you to think about why we do this first. Like, we didn't just jump into 10 things you do with dads in your community, because so many people have a different idea about the framework of how families work. And next week, we're going to talk about the research that this isn't like, when you see this model, this is not just some idea I had. This is a 20-year conversation backed up by research, backed up by practical experience, backed up by talking to lots and lots of people. I would love to tell you that this final model that we're working with, which is not final, but this model with which we are presently working, that I just dreamed this up and it's just genius. I think it's genius, but it was built on the conversations of the last 20 years of going, okay, the research says this, and it says this about kids that do well. Why is this the case? And so we've developed this model to explain what strong families look like and what the role of mom is, the role of dad is. So their strengths, both for comparison and contrast, right? And the reason we laid that out is because we want you guys to know, as you begin to work with fathers, you have to understand the importance of their role, the place of their role, and that it's much different than mom's. And it's not that he's just a dude and he's got this kind of enculturation, if you will, but it's also defined by the relationship with the child. And we've got a lot of neat stuff we'll talk about next week about research, and even down to 2-week-old babies, 1-day-old babies and how they react to moms and dads differently, how that plays out in their education, in their formative years. Those of you that are working in social service, you want to know what does that mean for outcomes for kids in our community? So I'm going to open this up to chat. First thing is, does this model make sense to you? Do some of you feel like I've been sitting in your house taking notes? That's what I get a lot of times, like, were you in my house? No, I was in my house, and it's amazing how similar our houses can be on that. So if you have any questions, and you may just be like, don't ask any questions, we can go. But we wanted to lay that out because a lot of you walk away like, I don't even know what I'm supposed to do now. I'm not supposed to do anything yet. You're really supposed to think about this. And what's interesting is when we come back next week, a lot of you will say, here's what I saw at my house that I'd never seen before. And I didn't make that happen. I just opened your eyes to it. I've had moms come up to me, particularly after this stuff we're going to talk about next week, and say, okay, I'll let my husband wrestle with the kids. I'm like, your kids are 10 and 14. They've never got to wrestle with their dads. Like, no, they wrestled all the time. I just didn't approve of it. You know, I just fought it all the time. And I realized that it was valuable for my kids. So, well, and thank you, Constance. Yeah, this is about moms and dads doing their job, not about one being right and one being wrong. And that's kind of the interesting part about the model. When we talk about mom and dad here and all the kids over here, that's not how it works, because that would be equal and same. I believe we're equal, but I don't believe we're the same. And it's been so hard to talk about parenting because dad does something different, then it must be in contradiction to mom. And it is in contradiction, or it may be opposite, or it may be different, but it's not contrary to what mom does, and vice versa. And when we understand our roles and can work through that constant negotiation, then both of our roles become more important to the kid, and our kid has better team members on both sides of them. And I appreciate Carla says it makes sense. Carla, remind me to send you my Venmo money for that. But like I said, I love this model. I am very proud of the work we've done to build it, except all I'm doing is explaining how things really are and how things really are for positive kids. So we can look at really tough environments, really tough neighborhoods, tough countries, all those things. When mom and dad are doing their job, these kids have so much better outcomes. And we're going to talk about outcomes next week. But I wanted you to see that. I want you to kind of gestate on that. Think about that. Think about where these things play out in your work. Because when you get this model down, it begins to inform how you reach both parents. We reach dads differently because dads think differently. Not just because they're dudes, not just because they're stoic or macho or whatever you think is a dude, but as a father, he just has a different role and perspective. Then once we understand that it's different, then we can start kind of plowing into that and saying, what's going on with that, whatever. A lot of the research we're going to share with you next week came from a book by Kyle Pruitt called Father Need. And the original study that he did, he's out of the Yale University School of Child Psychology. And a lot of the work he was doing on this book before he wrote the book was, what happens when dads are stay-at-home dads and moms are the breadwinners? What does that mean? And what he found out in his research, and then from the literature, is that if dad's a homemaker or a breadwinner, he's still dad. Well, how does that happen? Well, because it's not set up by domestic roles. You ladies on here right now are out there changing the world. Like, I don't think we have a mom here that's just here because she's a mom. 99, if not 100% of you are here because you're professional women doing great things in the world. When you were leaving the house and coming back, right? Now the challenge is I don't ever get to leave. But when you were leaving the house and coming home every day, after you change the world, your kids are like, Mom! And you're like, yeah. And you're like, what's to eat? Like, you do not get the respect as a mom that you should for all the great work that you do outside the home. Why? Because you're their mom. My mom is an amazing woman. She's owned her own businesses. She's like on every board in our county. She's a school board member at the age of 75. Just a freight train, man. But when I go over there, she's my mom. But when I was a kid, she was my mom. She was doing amazing things. Traveled all over the country, was a salesperson, was a buyer, all these really cool jobs. She was my mom. My dad coached sweaty high school boys as a high school football coach. I became a teacher and principal. I married a teacher. My brother's a teacher and a coach. My sister's a teacher. My son's a teacher. My father-in-law is a teacher, right? He informed how I plan to navigate the world. As much as I learned business and hustle and marketing and everything from my mom, I learned a lot from my dad on how I'm going to do those things. And it comes from that model so much. Yeah, so the question is here, will you be showing us how we can engage fathers even if we work mostly with moms? Absolutely. And I think that's part of the reason that I think this model is so important, because when I first started looking at parenting, the way I got into doing this work was I was trying to engage more parents in my middle school, which is already a hard enough job. And all the parenting programs I was looking at were just killing me. And I'm not a super macho dude. I was an elementary teacher. I was really, I hated men for a long time because that's what I heard at lunch every day. But it just wasn't sitting with me. It's like, that's not how I learn. That's not how I think. And then I trained with some guys out of Austin at the Center for Successful Fathering, and they just spoke to me with it. And this is not even their model. But they just spoke to me as a dude, as a dad. And it made so much sense to me. And so I started doing that, made me change my desire to be a principal because I want to be a better dad than I was a principal. And then I actually went to work for them for 3 years before we started Strong Fathers. And so the reason we brought this model up is because I want you guys to see, once you kind of have this in your head of, wait, they're approaching the child in a different way. That's probably the most important thing I want you to see. The mom's coming from one direction, dad's coming from another. So to help the dad, you've either got to meet him in the direction he's coming, or you got to come alongside him in that direction. And you can do one of the other. You just got to know what direction is he coming in, and am I meeting them there, or am I side by side with him? And so if you don't have any more questions, I'm going to leave my email up there. Also, I'd love to interact with you. I know you don't have a lot of time either, me neither. But if you go to Twitter, you go to Facebook, you go to Instagram, all of those are at Strong Fathers. If you follow me at J. Michael Hall on Instagram or Twitter, I'm not that active on. Instagram, you're going to see my lunch. You're going to see a lot of puppy and cow pictures. So if you like puppies and cows, that's what we're all about on the Instagram under J. Michael Hall. If you have any questions, if you have any concerns, email me, right? The other thing is, some of you are here and you didn't get an email from me directly. If you did not get an email from me directly, I would ask you to go back to the form that we sent you, strongfathers.com/virtual-effect, and go ahead and sign up again. It won't ask you to double opt in this time, because we want to make sure we can send you reminders about next week. I know that what you're going to be doing is sitting there in your office going, man, I can't wait till Thursday. It's just the most amazing thing. But I'm kind of betting that you may have some things that are more pressing between now and then. So we want to send you some resources, maybe send you a couple of things to look at before we get together. Not homework, but if it helps inform you of that. But sign up at, matter of fact, let me see if I can do that right now. So that's www.strongfathers.com. And Jada, you and Cynthia, y'all can come on unless I need to. I think you guys can.
It's strongfathers.com/virtual-effect.
There we go. That's way too big.
Perfect.
So let me bring that down a little bit. There we go. There we go. Bring that up a little bit. So if you haven't signed up, do that. We'd love to have that, have you guys do that. And we're going to have a replay of this. We're going to talk about where we want to kind of put that so you guys can go back. I mean, because again, you're like, I don't know what he meant when he said that. But if you've got colleagues that want to watch that and catch up with us next week, this conference is for you guys, right? And so the Fatherhood Effect program brought us in to help them with this. We want to bring that information to you. We want to help you guys. And what we'll do in the next couple of weeks is we're going to present some information. We're going to give you guys a chance to do some collaboration. We may do some breakout rooms. Don't let that scare you. You guys mainly work. A lot of you know each other, but we want to provide some opportunities so we can collaborate on some of the ideas that we're talking about. So Jade and Cindy, do you guys have anything you want to add or leave them with? They're like, no.
I don't. I know we have you're answering questions right now.
Yeah. Do you have? I didn't see any. I'm sorry. Go ahead and throw them at me if you got.
Yeah. Alicia has her hand raised. Alicia, do you have a question?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay.
That's typically how that happens. Like, oh, sorry, I raised my hand. Sorry.
Raised too. Was that an accident? Did you have
Does this model make sense to you guys?
Yes, it did.
Do any of you know what's behind me? Some of you are too young to know what's even behind me.
Oh, cassette tapes.
Yeah, it's like, well, see, some of them are like, what are those? Are those VHS things? So
I will say it's interesting. I'm sorry to interrupt. I have a daughter and son-in-law who have a 4-month-old. My grandson turned 4 months on Tuesday. And the description you provided between the mother and the father in the role is so true. My daughter pays attention to everything her husband does with that baby. And if he does anything wrong, she's very quick to share that.
right.
Correct.
To share that. I like that. That's a very nice way to talk about your daughter. I shared with him that I did not approve of that. Yeah, and so one of the things that we know is, so there's this idea that through mothering, home ec classes, enculturation, that women know all these things about babies, like just natural comes to you. And what the research says is at the point of birth, both parents are equally incompetent. And that's really hard for people to swallow, but here's why you see what you see still. At the point of birth, mom and dad, neither one of them know a thing, right? Even if they've been through classes. But at the point of birth, mom goes through the physical, the chemical, emotional, and like I said earlier, the spiritual change of childbirth. And she will do anything to protect that child. So she begins to gain competency against all odds. She'll listen to her mom. She'll listen to her mother-in-law. She won't listen to either one of you. She'll listen to the nurse or she won't listen to the nurse. She is gaining information and doing that just rapid fire full time. Dads are competency based. We as men are competency based. And Cindy, you can share this with your daughter, make it a video clip and say, oh, look, I found this video clip. I told you it could be from me. Just blot your face out if it's on the video. But you know, if you tell dad enough times that he's not changing the diaper right, he'll stop changing the diaper. And so, short story long is what I normally say. Y'all know me. I was doing a class for moms of kids 0 to 12 months from a hospital setting, mainly middle class moms, formerly professional moms that were now stay-at-home moms. And I said, bring your dads to this lunch meeting we're going to do, and we're going to talk about fatherhood. Well, only one dad showed up, and all the moms said, I told him I'd get the information. So they're already kind of gatekeeping, and, you know, and he was at work. And so she gave him permission not to come. Whereas what I would ask for her to do is go, you need to go because you're the dad of my kids. And so I, you know, mainly have women there and we're talking about, and I said, what is your challenge? I said, well, you know, he comes home and he's been working all day. I get it, but I've been with the baby all day and I want him to take the kid. Okay. And that was 2 months, 12 months. And I said, okay, here's what, do you want him to be good? Yeah. Do you want him to be really good at taking care of the kid? Yes. Do you want him to jump in there and get his hands dirty, quite literally, and get after it? Yes. Okay. Here's what you're going to do. By the time the child's 3 months old, I want you to go out to dinner when you feel like it, when you're ready physically and everything. I want you to go out with your friends, you know, for the night and not call back. Leave him home with the baby. Give him some instructions if you need to, but don't call back. And, you know, unless he calls you 3 times, don't answer. Just let him do something with the kid. And about half the moms fainted at the whole idea of leaving him alone with the child. And I said, no, believe me, the child will live. The child might be hungry when you get home because he didn't feed him right or whatever, but he's not going to gain any competency unless he's left on his own to do it. By the time the child is 6 months old, you need to do an overnight, or at least stay out until like the absolute, you know, latest before you come home. Don't answer the phone. Leave him a couple of instructions. Let him do what he wants to do with the kid. He'll be fine. Before the child is 12 months old, go away for the weekend and leave dad home with the baby. If you're not nursing, or if you are, leave bottles and let him stay home. And I thought they were all going to pass out. And I told him, I said, he can't gain competency if he's not getting that experience, and he can't gain competency if you're there over his shoulder telling him all the time, that's not how I do it. Elmo can go in the front or the back on the diapers if you want to know. I know from experience. And if it doesn't fit exactly like you think, we got a little duct tape, we'll make that diaper fit. I always say when they leave them there for the, you know, when they leave dad and kid home for the weekend, I go, the kid's going to live. It's going to be in the same onesie all weekend until you get home. And it's like being burnt in the backyard before you get there. But the kid's going to live. They're going to be happy. Dad's going to gain some competency. And when he comes home and the child's alive, or when you come home and the child's alive, say, good job. Because dad already knows the challenges. Dad already knows that. And so, it's all those things that we've got to remember. So, but that's where a lot of dads, I'm doing a coaching session with dads in Singapore, and one of the dads has a kid on the spectrum. And we know a lot of dads that have kids with disabilities check out, and we think it's because they can't handle having a kid that's broken. But so many times in their role, when they say, I want them to be more competent, I want to push this kid a little harder, let them try more, a very protective mom, which we understand why she's protective, can tend to push that dad away. All the dads aren't running away from a disabled child. They're losing their influence and role in the life of that child up to the point where they feel there's no reason for them to be there. There are dads that walk out. I'm not saying that. But there's a lot of dads, when you get their story, that nobody was giving them the time of day for their own child. And so they felt, and this disability that doesn't go away. So the challenges stay. And then sooner or later, it's like, I don't even know why I'm here. So again, that's part of our job, is to work with dads that are struggling with that, and work with moms to know that, his perspective could be quite valid. Most of the kids that you see that have disabilities that are reaching their highest potential usually have a team of mom and dad, advocating and protecting, pushing and stretching all at the same time. So any other questions?
I do have another question. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, yeah.
I had someone ask me if their staff weren't able to participate today, is there going to be an opportunity for them to view this?
Yeah, we'll do a replay. I need to talk to you guys about a couple places we can post it, but we can do that. Also, if you have staff, have them sign up at that form. Again, let's go back. I'm going to go back to my thank you page. strongfathers.com virtual-effect, because they'll get links to the replay, and you're welcome to send them that link. But we want to inform people of all the things that we're providing for this. We were just trying to get kind of everybody there. We appreciate you guys. Spread the word. Like I said, send the replay out, bring your staff back. We want to see this grow. My job is to keep you here and keep you interested for a few minutes. But I promise you've done the hard work today. We're going to take this model and show you what the research says and make it make sense for practice. I know that's why you're here. What I do find, though, is those of us that are parents that have kids that are in relationships, we take this personal first, and then we translate it into our professional life. Cindy, just like you're talking about, you've been a professional, you've worked with all these families, but when the first thing that hits you is maybe how you guys did it, but more so how you're seeing your daughter and son-in-law do it, because it's very fresh. And it's like, you're thinking they're different than we were, and they're not. This is a phenomenon that goes across the board. So it's very interesting working with dads around the world sometimes now, just how the fears are similar, the joys are similar, the challenges are similar. So if you guys have any other questions.
Thank you, Mike, for coming and doing this today. We appreciate the information, the knowledge, the things you've learned. Look forward to next week.
That's where the gray hair comes from. Glad we can share.
Yeah.
I do still have some.
Yeah, I'll take gray if I can just keep some of it.
Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all.
Lydia's just hitting the waiting room, so.